Good morning, first grade. I hope everyone is having a great day so far. All right, today we are going to take a closer look at Feel the Wind. Let's first start by checking out our questions for today. So, our whole pizza question that we will be working to answer over the course of this whole module 3 is how do people respond to the powerful force of the wind? And we've talked about the word powerful and the word force. Our one slice of pizza question that we will be working on in the next several days as we continue working with this text is how is the wind a powerful force? And then our one bite of pizza question is what is happening in Feel the Wind? And that's really the question that we want to really focus on answering today and in our next lesson. Okay, so do you remember this should look familiar, right? So I have this little container and inside I have, some buttons. Do you remember what we use this for? Yeah, very good. We use this to help us find the main topic and the details of a text and also sections of a text. So you probably remember hearing the buttons and boxes strategy. And that's what we're going to do today and take a look at some sections of Feel the Wind and try to identify the details, the key details, and the box, yes, the main topic. Excellent. All right, so in the text that we read in Module 2 about the animals, what we did was we first looked at specific sections of those texts and tried to figure out what the details were and then use the details to help figure out what the main topic was. We're going to actually do that opposite in reverse today with Feel the Wind. Sometimes it can be easier to look at the book as a whole, look at the text as a whole, and try to figure out what the main topic is of the whole text, and then go back and look at some sections. So that's what we're going to do. So when you look at this text, Feel the Wind, and we read it earlier this week, and you look through and think about what are all of the pages talking about? What is the main topic of this text? What do you think? Yeah, it's all about the wind, right? This whole book is telling about different aspects about wind and thinking about what would be some evidence to help support that idea that the main topic is wind. Well, the title, right? Feel the Wind. Not always, but often, whatever the title of a book is, like this kind of text, the title usually helps to give us an idea of what the main topic is. It's not in every single book, no exceptions, but for the most part, in many of the texts that you'll read, the title will help to tell you what the topic of the text is. And if we just look through the book, wind is mentioned and, all sorts of different facts and information related to wind are in every part of the book. So I think that, that's some good evidence to support the idea that the main topic of this text is wind. Okay, so now that we have figured that out, now let's look at some specific parts. Okay, so let's look at a specific section and I'll get my buttons and boxes ready and see if you can figure out what the details and then the main topic of this section is. All right, we're going to go ahead over to the book. Okay, there we are. And I'm going to read this page and then the next few pages and see what you notice about the details in this part. Have you felt the wind blowing through your hair? Wind is moving air. Air is what we breathe. It is everywhere around us, even though we can't see it. We can't see air, and we can't really see the wind. but we can see the wind move things. Wind pushes clouds across the sky. Wind flutters the leaves of trees and makes ripples on lakes. You can hear the wind too. When wind blows through cracks in your house, it can sound like someone whistling. If the wind blows very hard, it can sound like a wild animal howling. You can see the wind move things, you can hear the wind, and you can feel the wind too. Stand by an open window and let the breeze tickle your face. A strong gust or a light breeze. Wind is moving air, but what makes air move? Okay, so in this section that we just read, let's go back to that first page, and I'm going to get my buttons. And I notice here that it is talking about wind being moving air. Okay, I think that's a detail that I'm going to put into my box. Wind is moving air. Okay, now I also notice that it says wind is all around us, even though we can't see it. Okay, so it's all around us, but we can't see it. I think that's another important detail. Okay, so I will put that in my box. Now, when we get to this page, it says that, we can't see the air and the wind, but we can see it move other things. So I think that's another important detail. We can see it moving other things. And then lastly, on this page, it says you can hear the wind. So it's talking about how you can hear the wind. I think that's an important detail that I'm going to put into the box. And then this last part really focused on telling us about how you can feel the wind, right? And standing in front of a window and seeing if it's a light gust or, a strong gust or a light breeze, but you can feel the wind. So I'm going to put that in my box. So far, all of my buttons have been about, wind is moving air. We can't see it, but we can see the effects of wind. We can see it moving things. We can hear wind, and we can feel wind. So what do those all have in common? What do you think? What do all of those details have in common? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This section is all about how we can use our senses to see, hear, and feel the wind. So let's add that to our main topics chart. Okay, here we are. So I added the all pages, the whole text is about the wind. And then on pages 4 through 8 that we just read, you can use your senses to see, hear, and feel the wind. Let's look at one more section together. Okay, so I'm going to take the buttons out of my box. I'm going to have them here. I have my box. And let's think about this section of the text. What are some details that you hear? All of the earth is surrounded by air. Earth and the air around it are heated by the sun, but some parts of the earth heat up more than other parts. In the tropical parts of earth near the equator, the sun's rays strike the earth directly. The air gets very hot. Near the earth's icy poles, the sun's rays strike at a slant, so the air stays cooler. When hot air and cold air change places, wind is made. Hot air is lighter than cold air, so hot air rises. People discovered this a long time ago and used hot air to make balloons float. The heated air in the balloons was lighter than the cooler air outside. The hot, light air made the balloons float upward. When heated air over the earth rises, cooler, heavier air rushes in to take its place. The moving air is wind. Okay, so let's think about what are some of the details that we hear on these pages. So I'm going to go back. What do you think? What are some of the details? Yeah, one thing I read is that I noticed here is that the sun heats the earth up and it also heats the air in different ways, but it heats the air. So that's one detail that I'm going to put in the box. Leading from that, I also read and noticed another detail is that some parts of the earth have hotter air and some parts have cooler air. So I think that's another important detail. And then it also talks about on this page, um, hot air rises and then the cool or cold air comes and takes its place. I think that's another important detail. And then here it says, when heated air over the earth rises, cooler, heavier air rushes in to take its place. The moving air is wind. So I think that is another detail, that hot wind is made when hot air and cold air really change places. So that's another detail. So thinking about all the details that we just identified, what do you think is the main topic of this section? What do you think? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That this section is really focusing on how wind is made from hot air and cold air changing places. So that when hot air rises and cold air comes in, that's what creates wind. So let's add that to our chart. Okay. All right, here we go. So wind is made when hot air rises and cold air comes in. Okay, very good. So we're going to stop there for today, taking a look at the buttons and boxes. And in our next lesson, we will practice looking at, or work together to look at some more sections of the text and find the main topic. So now we are going to talk a little bit more about using more than one source when you are researching. So it might be a good time if you would like to pause the video and take a little shake break. If you'd like a little break, now would be a good time because we are changing topics a little bit. But if you're good to go, then just feel free to keep on watching. But otherwise, feel free to pause and just come back in whenever. So we're going to talk about using different sources. Okay, so when the author Arthur Dorros went to write this book, he more than likely had to look at multiple different sources to find information about the wind, right? He had to research. And we've talked a little bit about this before. When I gave an example, I believe, of cooking a recipe. I might find the recipe online, but then I might also need to look up something about a certain ingredient that I'm not familiar with. And then I might also try to find a video that walks me through how to make the recipe or how to do a part of the recipe. And we said that, when you're trying to learn something new, you often will look at more than one source. And that's a place for getting information, whether it's a book, an article, a website, a video. Those are all sources. So the author had to look at many different sources to get all of this information for this text. Now, when we get to our next writing task, you're going to get to practice using multiple sources. And I want you just to keep this question in mind. Why is research with multiple sources important? So we'll keep coming back to that, but just keep that in mind, why you think that might be important to look at more than one source. So for your focusing question task, which we're not quite there, but when we do get to this, the first writing task, you're going to write an informative paragraph about using multiple sources. And you're going to be writing about hurricanes. And you'll be thinking about, what does the wind do during a hurricane? And you will look at different sources to help you answer this question. So what we're going to do today is practice looking at two different sources to find information and compare the information that we find at the two different sources. So say, for example, you're researching for your writing about hurricanes, and you will look at two different sources, and you may find information that is similar, right? You might find in two different sources, the two different sources would say that, hurricane winds are strong, that they, basically say the same thing. Hurricanes have strong winds. You might also find information that is different. One article might give you facts about how fast the wind actually is, like 100 miles per hour, while another source might say, hurricane winds can knock down trees. You see how those are two different pieces of information, how fast the wind is blowing in a hurricane, and then hurricanes knock down trees. So you can see the difference between information that is similar and information that is different. And when you are researching, if you find two pieces of information from two different sources that are the same, would you include both of those in a writing if they say the same thing? Yeah, no, you wouldn't need to repeat yourself. So that's why it's always good to look for different sources so you can see, oh, is this some different information that I haven't learned before that could make my writing more interesting? So we're going to practice finding information from two different sources, and that is what your activity response will be. So we're first going to take a look at a page in the text. So let me just jump over to that. We're going to go to this page. 1 second. Oh, there we go. Went too far. So think about, what is something that you are learning from this page? Have you felt the wind blowing through your hair? Wind is moving air. Air is what we breathe. It is everywhere around us, even though we can't see it. And as we've talked before, we not only look at the text, but also at the illustration. Okay, so we're hearing from this page that wind is moving air, we breathe air, it's everywhere around us, we cannot see it. And I see in the picture that this person is flying a kite that seems to be staying up in the air because of the wind. And this person looks like their hair is being blown a little bit. So keep this page in mind, and we're going to take a look at another illustration. Okay, jumping all around here. So this is actually in your Wit and Wisdom Module 3 workbook, but you don't need it for the activity. I have a copy here and then also in the Seesaw activity. But if you would like to take a look at it in the workbook, it is on page handout 3B. All right, so looking at this illustration, what is something that we can learn about the wind from looking at this illustration? Yeah, right. I see the air, the wind is blowing the person's hair. It also looks like it's blowing their skirt or their shirt, whatever dress they're wearing. And I can again see that the kite is up in the air, and it seems like they're holding it with a string and it's staying up in the air. And I also notice that I don't actually see the wind, right? Can you see the wind in this? No. So compare this with the two pages that we just took a look at in the text, Feel the Wind. Was some of the information that we learned from both the same? Yeah, right? Some of the information was the same. Was some of the information different? Yeah, some of it was different. So if we were, wanting to write about the wind, we could use both of these sources that could, give us similar information, but then we would also want to look for some information that is a little bit different. So for your Seesaw activity, and I know I've kept you here for a while, so I appreciate your kind attention. For your Seesaw activity, I would like you to use the recording, the microphone, to record yourself sharing one thing that you learned about the wind from the illustration and one thing that you learned from the pages in the text. And, I know that this is new for us, looking at different sources and researching and trying to figure out what we've learned. So as always, just try to do the best that you can to share something you've learned from this illustration and something that you've learned from these two pages in the book, okay? And I can't wait to hear what you have to say, what you think, what you've learned. And as always, just try your best and let me know if you have any questions. And thanks again for your kind attention. Bye.